Thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Kevin Nyango, the founder of Mtandao University. The platform literally talks about those skills or soft skills that employers are looking for or that attracts opportunities. But today I am not alone. Today I am with Mutemi Wa Kiama. Kiama, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, Kevin. It's an honor to be here.
Well, listen, I was just telling Sambu that we should have had this podcast long time ago. But I suppose this is the right time for it.
Yes, this is the right time for it.
And so how should I call you, Kiam? I mean, so you're a human rights activist, and also you kind of a celebrity as well.
No, I'm not a celebrity. And
So-
I wouldn't
so you-
want to be.
No, but you are people know who you are, Kiam. I remember, when I shared this with some of my friends, and they're like, they call you Wanjiko Revolution. Like, William say Wanjiko Revolution, tunamjua. So clearly people know who you are.
People know who I am, but celebrity has another connotation. It has a connotation of seeking publicity, which I don't. It's just that the government has been making me famous by arresting me, which I'd rather stay behind the scenes and do my thing.
And that's something that people don't. I mean, I know who you are. I know we have spoken several times, but people do not know that most of the things that happen behind the scene in terms of some of the exposés that we read on newspaper, you are behind them, isn't it?
We do a lot of work behind the scenes, to hold the government to account, to hold our leadership to account. And we don't do it so that you can gain fame. People keep telling us, ambia serikali kupatia kazi, like I know some people ask me, like, what do you do for a living, or don't you have anything else you could do instead of criticizing government? But the thing is, we are active citizens, and an active citizen has to, the Constitution, the Constitution of 2010, it says we have rights and freedoms. And then there's a third thing that most people don't talk about, which is responsibilities. And the way the Constitution is designed, for it to work well, as people have seen during the issue of BBI in the courts, the issue of public participation was huge. And it's been designed into the Constitution that for this, and it's because of where we were coming from. We were coming from, and I guess this tied to today's topic. We were coming from a time when you could not question authority. You could not ask questions. You could not, we assume that the president knows it all. Alikuwa anaitwa baba na mama.
Yes,
Kanu was
yes.
baba na mama.
Yes.
The Mwalimu number one or whatever, like one person had solutions and answers to every question. And so because we were coming from that era, the people who framed the 2010 Constitution framed it in a way that it would ensure the people, the ordinary people, would have an input to how they are governed. And so
carry on.
I guess some of us, the so-called activists, are the people who have read the Constitution and understand that we have responsibilities to hold our leadership to account.
Well, great. I mean, you've mentioned the one. I'll just go straight to the point about responsibility. Now, and I know when we were discussing about the podcast, my desire or what I want to get you on is, do you think if I'm looking for opportunity myself, and as secretary said someone's supposed to give opportunity, should I be doing that? Why should I bother?
I mean, could you ask that question again?
Sorry, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Marvelous. Well, I was saying that as you, well, young people right now are looking for opportunities, really, and I think it's well documented that most of unemployed people in Africa, in Kenya, to be specific, are young people. They are struggling to find opportunities. And I was going to ask you, if I'm looking for opportunity with the government, and at the same time, I see issues that affect me that are not being addressed, should I be vocal and talk about those injustices, even though I'm looking for employment within the government positions?
Thank you for that question, and it's a very vital question. We live in a society that tells people that you should not question your elders, and in that frame, the government and leaders in government or people in government are considered to be elders. That is the African, the Kenya that we're coming from, where it was a colonial construct. The Mzungus who came here had a mandate, and they knew how to subjugate Africans. So, Kevin, you and I, when we were growing up, you wouldn't be allowed to ask teachers questions.
No. Even now, some schools don't, really. You don't ask anything.
And in fact, I know that when I was growing up, there was an approved school near where I grew up in Kirinyaga. And most of the kids who were in those approved schools are those ones who did not conform. And you realize the people who did not conform are usually the most intelligent, the ones who ask questions, the ones who refuse to follow, to just swallow whatever they are being told. And when you question teachers, then you end up, or society, your elders, you end up in an approved school. So this was a system designed to make sure that everybody conforms, and then you reward not asking questions. You reward those people who just swallowed everything and reproduce it word for word. Those are the ones who would go to the Alliance High School, the Mangu, and the Njiri School, and where I went, and other schools, either provincial schools or national schools. And this was a system that was supposed to provide certain people who would work within the Mzungu or colonial enterprises and serve certain purposes, that is managers, supervisors, clerks, accountants, etc. So they had to look for a certain character or person who could not question and who swallowed everything their bosses told them without questioning.
And so Kiama, hang on. Kiama, let me go back again. So Kiama, let me go back. Let me go back again. I think I like that. So are you saying that in those days, I want to say in the 50s, those people that went to Alliance, the Mangus, were people that were colonial sympathizers?
In the 50s, yes, and the 60s, but not even then. Even today, people who run the so-called blue chip companies in Kenya, these blue chip companies, most of them are British. They are owned by, it's the Barclays, it's the Standard Chartered, it's the BAT, it's the East African Breweries, it's the CMC Motors. It's all these are companies that are owned by the Canadian. It's the Del Montes. So they wanted managers, supervisors, etc., who do not question and who toe the line when they are told. And so, coming to your question, these people don't know how to create opportunities. That's why we still have the same companies that were running in the 50s still running today. We have very few new companies in this country. Most of them are the same ones that were there before independence, during independence, and even now they're still the blue chip.
We got the equity. Kiama, we got the equity. Well, I know Nakuma is going down, but there. I know some
equity in Safaricom, but Safaricom is also British. Equity is an outlier out there. It's one of the few outliers. There are few outliers. So how do you then survive in this society that does not allow questioning? I think part of the challenge we have is that we have an economy built for the 50s, the 60s, for a few people, a few elites. And that was an education system that was meant to reduce the number of what I've just talked about, managers and supervisors, because you had few companies. So you have cut-off points, not necessarily meaning you're not intelligent. It means that if you want 100 people, we will put an exam that will fail everybody else but 100 people. So that we have 100 positions for managers, we have maybe 1,000 for clerks, 500 for accountants. So it was an education system designed to cut off people. So what happens is that the economy has expanded, Kenya has expanded, but the opportunities have not expanded because the people who are in charge of the country and in charge of our private sector do not know how to create opportunities. So it helps you none for you to sit there and not question. In fact, the more people who question, the better, because then we can elect people into positions of power who will provide solutions so the young people can find opportunities.
Okay, man, I mean, those are quite, it's not allegations, but listen.
Kevin, this is logic. This is logic.
And I like it.
That are logical.
And I think I really asked to come and talk to me or talk about this issue is I don't know young people, and you find also we need to define what we mean by young people. Because most of the times people put young people. For example, I'm going to mention a name, and I've got no personal vendetta with this person. So, for example, Eric Omondi, the comedian, he came out today, and there's this clip, and he was talking about young people taking over. And I was looking at people around him, and I'm like, why do we have to paint poor people, or people look miserable, or people look like they don't have as young people? Yet we got people like others, who run companies or startups, under 40, whatever it is, but they're not part of this movement. So what I'm going to ask you, Kiama, is why do we have to bring sadness when you talk about young people?
So I don't know. I didn't see the video of Eric Omondi, although I saw a reference to it. I think Eric is by definition of a youth in this country. I think he's above 35, so he's not a youth. But there's something that is called arrested development in this country. Let me explain that.
Please do.
Arrested development. Arrested development is that there are so many opportunities that have been lost because the economy has not been creating opportunities. So there are people who are in their 60s today who are told they'll be the leaders of the future, but they never saw that opportunity. They are still looking for that opportunity. So there are people in their 50s, others in their 40s, others in their 20s. They're still struggling to find opportunities. So that's what I call arrested development. So I don't blame Eric if he's over 35, if he still thinks he's a youth, because maybe the opportunities he's been looking for, he has not found. But I think he has found his opportunities. But I also think Eric is working for somebody. Most probably he's working for a politician, and there's a narrative that he's driving, because that's what he does. He shapes narrative. So I suspect.
Well, I don't want to bear this discussion based on him. But let's go back to the point. And for those that have just joined us, this is Mtandao Varsity, a school of soft skills. And today I'm talking to Mutemi Wa Kiama, who is a human rights defender and is based in Nairobi. So Kiama, you mentioned about our economy does not create opportunity for young people. So do we blame the government for that?
The government is just an entity. I think what would blame, if you had to apportion blame, is leadership. And leadership is both in government and outside government. Leadership is in the society, basically. So you talk about leadership in education, in schools, leadership in business, leadership in places of worship, whether it's mosque or churches, leadership in various places that is conforming. And I think that's the topic of today, that does not allow different opinion. So that you have people right now, remember when we had Anko Moody, the former vice president, being appointed to the board of young people at 91 then. I think now he must be 94 and he's still in that board. Those are all very old ideas, essentially old ideas. And we're in the fourth industrial revolution. Some parts of Kenya are bado, they don't even come to the first industrial revolution of the 1800s. The people were still living in the Stone Age. But the rest of the world is in the fourth industrial revolution. And part of Kenya, especially people who have access to this Mtandao space are looking for opportunities, not even in Kenya. They're looking for opportunities across the world because it's become a very globalized world. And if they can't find those opportunities or access them, then what purpose? For what purpose is the leadership that we have in power, in government, in other spaces? What is their work? You know, if we don't have affordable internet, affordable, accessible, fast internet to enable people to work in the online space, whether they are coding or whatever they are doing, then it's a leadership issue. But it's what we call, but it's not just a Kenyan issue, because this is what we call the neoliberal paradigm, whereby governments in the 80s and 90s stopped doing what governments were meant to do, which is to facilitate their citizens to access certain services affordably, sometimes even free, and started privatizing everything. And then when you give things to the private sector always works to maximize profit. And they maximize profit by reducing the number of workers, reducing the inputs and all that. So part of the reason, again, so as I say, it's leadership across different sectors.
Right. At what time are we going to stop blaming colonialists? Yet, it's not. Kema, as I speak to you right now, okay, we do know that, well, Kenya is self-governed, isn't it? We've got a president, we've got a system of government, so it is working. Well, if you ask me, in terms of security, I mean, we are not a lawless state. But at what time will we stop blaming the colonialists and start blaming ourselves?
I think part of blaming the colonialists is accepting, it's part of the acceptance, because there are people, the people who are in power work for the colonialists. And I can give you practical examples. If you look at the British companies that are in this country and you check the shareholding, it will be our politicians, and not just any politician. It's the politicians who belong to certain families that have been in power since the colonial times, the sons and daughters of chiefs. And those are the guys who are shareholders in these companies. They are the managers, they sit on their boards. And so in essence, they don't work for Kenya, they work for the British Crown, And what they do is that they block anybody accessing capital, accessing resources, or rising up into political office if you're not one of them, and if you're not there to, so they act as backstoppers. They block, they are brokers. They broker Kenya to the British, and they're very good at that. So every time we rise, Kenyans rise and question, because this episode is about questioning authority. They come for you. Some people disappear, they're killed, others are arrested, and such. So that's why most Kenyans fear. You asked about Kenyans questioning government, and yet you want opportunities from government. It's because the reason you're asking that question is because Kenyans know what happens when you raise your voice, when you ask questions. They come for you, or they kill you, or they disappear you. So we can't say we stop blaming the colonialists. And we can't say Kenyans are not trying to do anything. Kenyans have been trying to do anything, but these guys control state power.
That is interesting. So whoever's listening to us right now, just a fresh graduate, has spent 3-4 years looking for work, it's not working for them. What do you tell this person then, Kiam?
I can't pretend to have answers, but what I can pretend to have, not pretend, what I do have is experience of having been a jobless graduate at my age, but also having grown up, went to university in the 90s when the Moi was in power, when the economy was not creating opportunities, just like now, because a lot of the young people today grew up during Kibaki's time when there was plenty. And then Uhuru has come and destroyed that plenty. So a lot of the young people right now are going through what we went through in the 90s. So from that experience, what I can say is this: identify what you're passionate about, follow it, and then do this. If you're sweeping, sweep like your life depends on it, because it does. Sweep that so that when Kevin passes there and finds you sweeping, he will say you are the best sweeper around, and he will have you in mind next time an opportunity arises somewhere. If you have a degree, you have your college papers or your degree papers or whatever it is. But all the only job you can find is for sweeping. Maybe if you become a very good sweep, and you'll find ways to do it economically. Maybe even employ other people so that you can now start sweeping the neighborhood and sweeping other people's buildings and start a sweeping company. And all of a sudden, you don't need to be employed, you're self-employed, and you're employing other people. So that's how opportunities come. So do whatever it
Please
is
carry
to
on.
do it to the best of your ability.
When you started this discussion, you mentioned that our economy does not really reward. Not use the same word, but just interpret what you said. That the Kenya's economy does not really reward work ethics, or does not reward brilliance. For you to get something, you must know somebody in the high office. Again, back to
Very
you.
true.
So, please carry on. So, well, I'm still back to you again. So, even though we know all this stuff, how difficult it is, and you mentioned about your experience. So, what's the way forward then? Again, I'm talking about young people, Kiama, here.
And on that question, we could also go to the issue of what you said about, we are talking about patronage, why we blame the colonialists. The system of patronage. If I don't have a relative in a certain position in government, I can never get a government job. If I don't have a relative who works as a top banker, I can never, and though I've studied banking and I was top of my class, I can never get a good job at the bank, So that is the colonial legacy of patronage.
But it's just such a mindset, Kiama, though, because you find those people. For example, I give names. Okay, well, you find people that I've got no connection at all. You look at their names. They're not the well-known names, but they are working for the government.
And that is what I talked about in the beginning. You have this system that produces people from the time you go to nursery school, and you're channeled to certain schools. Yeah, I don't want to mention. I mentioned the Alliances, the Starehe, the whatever, the Mangus and others. The Njeri school where I went to, the Masenos. All these schools are all over the country, and they collect a pool of people. Intelligent but conformists, and then they channel them either to government or to the private sector. It's a system designed. That's why the system is designed. So they're outliers. But most of these people you find, people who get A throughout the education system, are the ones who end up running these companies or going to become permanent secretary in government. So you've prepared this person's mindset in a certain way and molded it in a certain way. And this person, it's not that they don't know anybody. It's a system that has been designed to ensure that this person rises to that position, because this system has measured that person in certain ways all along the way. And that's why they behave all the same. Whether you put Matiang'i there, or Kibicho, or you put Kimemia before him, or whoever, they all behave the same.
Are you trashing, Kiama? Are you trashing the education system we have?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Although I'm a product of that system, the reason why right now I cannot be employed by government, and I cannot be employed by any blue chip company, it's because I'm questioning things. It's because I'm questioning, and you're not supposed to question. And I'm answering the topic of this. So what is the solution going forward? Is that we need more people questioning so that you can get answers. We need less people conforming. And what can the young people do? They're already suffering, isn't it? They don't have jobs, they don't have opportunities. What they need to do is come together, form, join movements that they can start electing each other to power, to MCAs or to parliament.
Like what Eric Omon is doing then?
Whatever, because they have the numbers.
So like
Kenya
what Eric Omon is doing?
80% young people, yeah?
So like what Eric Omon is doing, it's trying to bring people together. And again, I'm not privy to this information.
No. I totally agree. For whatever reason, whatever his reasons are, what he's saying the right thing. That's what we need to do. Come together, realize that we have the numbers. The young people have the numbers. I'm not a young people anymore. A young person anymore, but I'm young at heart because also I'm arrested development. And start creating the Kenya they want. You see, right now we are living in a Kenya, as you kept pointing out, that is stuck in the colonial past. Now we need people, we need young people like even you, Kevin, you're wherever you are right now, you're exposed to a totally different life, and you've been exposed to a totally different way of doing things, whereby someone born in a village somewhere without knowing anybody or without going to a certain school, if they have certain skills, they can actually even access capital. You know, they can go to a venture capitalist and their initiative will be funded. Today, Kevin, I tell you, if I invent something that is useful to mankind, and I try to fundraise so that I can manufacture that thing, someone will steal my patents. Actually, you don't have patent law in Kenya, so someone will take my patent and go and produce that thing elsewhere, and I'll never get a coin of that thing. So what we need to do is have the people come together now in collectives and start changing these things.
And we talk about changing. So
Yeah,
again, for those that have just joined us, I'm speaking to Mutemi Wa Kiama, human rights defender based in Nairobi, Kenya. My name is Kevin Nyango. Kiama, this is interesting. I mean, so are you telling us, literally, for us to stop complaining, we should just come together and do it, get rid of people that we think are not for young people?
It's already happening. If you Google something called the social justice networks, young people from informal settlements from the like in Nairobi, Avare, Kibera, Congo, Huruma, Dandora, Koch, Korogosho. Go to Kisumu, Kodere, go to other places across the country, Mombasa. Young people are coming together in centers, which are called the social justice centers. And they're sharing it, they're learning, they're studying our history, the true history of Kenya, not the one that is taught in school. And through the learning, they're seeing, oh, this is why we are denied opportunities. So what do we do about it? They're asking the same questions you're asking. And they're finding solutions to those answers, to those questions. And they are organizing together. They are engaging in economic activities, some have started car washes, and their purpose of starting that car wash is to make the best car wash possible, and then grow it and become an empire of car washes. So that they wash the car. If you bring your car there, Kevin, they'll wash it the way your car has never been washed. Then your car will tell you bring.
So why is this scammer? Why is this?
And they are in some places in Dandora, in Madare, in Kibera, across but right now they are about 42 social justice centers.
So why don't you read about this, Kiama? So, excuse my ignorance, but what you're saying is amazing. And it seems like at the grassroots level, something's happening, isn't it?
But you won't read about this because the media is owned by our politicians. And our politicians don't. That's what I'm telling you. If you Google social justice centers right now, you will find that information. But without it being reported, Kenyans are addicted to news. So if it's not in the news, then it's not happening. If it's not in the Nation or Citizen or whatever, it has not happened. And Kevin, Citizen will talk about Uhuru, talk about Raila, we'll talk about Ruto, we'll talk about Musalia, we'll talk about Kalonzo, Wetangula, and Ruto, I think. Some 7 guys. That is the news in Kenya. And so if it's not happening around those 7 people, it's not happening in Kenya. And so that's why Twitter, by the way, has become so powerful, and Instagram for Kenyans, because now we are pushing our own agenda that the mainstream media will not push. So if you go to my timeline, for example, you will see I've retweeted Madara Social Justice Center, Dandora Social Justice Center, Kodere Social Justice Center in Kisumu, Western Social Justice Network. There are people doing things across the country that they don't rely on government. Yesterday, I tweeted about a guy who had gone to Siaya County headquarters, some guys, some activists, to protest corruption. These are the guys. These are the people you're talking about. These are young people who but they've said, we can't keep talking about corruption, and it's happening right here in our neighborhood, and we are doing nothing.
Yes. And Kiama, just on that topic, so you mentioned the names, areas like Korogosho, Dandora, informal settlements, right? But there are young people in Muthaiga, in Lavington. What happened to them?
those ones are taken care of by their mothers. They're taken to international schools and all that, so they're okay. And they'll end up in a UK university or a US university, and then come back and run a bank, you know,
But we
or even
cannot.
stay out there and do whatever.
But we cannot. We can. It's not their fault that they're born wherever they were born, isn't it?
We are not blaming them. We're not. Nobody's blaming them. They were born wherever they are born, but unless they choose, and let me tell you, Kevin, the interesting thing is, some of them, or a number of them, choose to engage. So if you go to Mandara Social Justice Center and they're having a meeting, you will find guys from Lavington and Rwanda who have come down there to connect to their society. But that's a small number. A lot of them don't care. And it's not that they don't really care, it's that they are not exposed. Because if Kevin, from the time you're born, you go to kindergarten, you're being taken to kindergarten in an SUV, which has darkened windows. An escort, you have an escort. So the only Kenya you see is when you're in that car, and then you go to a mall. Maybe that's where you interact on Saturdays and Sundays. You go to Two Rivers, you go to school, international. When you go on holiday, you go out in the country. So that's the Kenya you know. Or even if it's within the country, you're going to these lodges where foreigners come for tourism, then you're not connected. And it's not, I can't blame you. I only believe, and I can't even blame the parents because it's a system. This thing is a system. It's a global system.
And that's the system that
that's why the young people in Madare.
Sorry, please carry on. Carry on, please. Carry on.
That's what I'm saying. That's why the people in Madare, because of grading and school, are learning that the world is very different from what the Kenyan history is very different from what they were taught in school, and that to survive in the world, they have to create their own opportunities, and to do that, they have to educate themselves. That's why they're educating themselves, and they're not blaming anybody. They are what you're calling blame is not really blame. It's understanding that this is why I'm poor, you know, because of this system. And also have to do something to overcome my situation. So it's understanding that Kenya is a colonial state. It was created as a colonial state. It was handed over to black colonialists at independence, what we call independence. And it is designed to stay so unless we do something about it.
That is interesting. And listen, you're saying things that we can spend the whole evening talking about. Let's go back to conformity, and I think that's very important to me, because sometimes when people question, they're being labeled as rebels. They're being labeled as anti-state, and that can discourage people, isn't it? So again, I'm putting this to you. So if I'm looking for opportunity, Kiama, right now, I've got siblings that are looking for school fees. Parents who are old age, need to be taken care of. And I am qualified. I know that I can be a civil servant, okay? And there's a channel available for me to get this kind of opportunity. And then, in the midst of all this, I come across corrupt officials. Do you think I will be quiet? Do you think I'm going to say something? I know very well that this guy is going to give me a job. Do you think I'm going to say something?
Kevin, there are very few people who can go against the system, especially if you've been brought up in conformity. Let me give you an example. When I was in class 4, a teacher said something, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but I was double sure that was wrong. And so I raised that. I said, I don't think so, Mwalimu. I think the position is this. And I can tell you what happened to me is that I was held by my ears, and I was taken to a corner in front of the classroom and told to kneel, and I knelt there until the class was over. And then I was told to go and sit back down. So I was punished, but the issue, the teacher never said what I'd said was not right. But just because I'd raised my voice and corrected him in front of the whole class, I was punished. And that's how most of us have been brought up. So it's very hard to go against that. So when you see people joining the system and deciding to eat just because they're there, I cannot blame them. What can we do? is that we are building with what are the kind of movements I'm telling you about, the social justice movements and other movements, you know, the Kenya Tuitakayo movement and other movements. These are small efforts, small but growing efforts at unlearning what we were taught from the time we were young, that saying it's okay to question. Now that
Kiama, where can we find this? Where can we find this this prophet you're talking about? I know you say if you Google you can find it, but you know I think sometimes, and again, I'm not supporting the ignorant here, but the thing that you're mentioning that personally I didn't even know about, but they're very important, I think. So where can people find this? And not necessarily just to be anti-government, but to learn. As you say, we need to relearn our history. So,
but then we are not anti-government. We are not anti-government. Just that when we question people who are elected to provide opportunities for young people, then they label us. The government labels us as anti-government because they don't want questioning. I'd rather see the distinction. You know, when we ask, you know, when we ask for accountability, we are labeled evil society or activists. Like as if being an activist is a bad thing. Let me tell you, Kevin. You see what you're doing right now. The questions you're asking around young people and opportunities. That is activism. You're being an activist because you're asking why are things not the way they should be. And if you think about it that way, everybody should be an activist. Everybody in Kenya, everybody in their space, even being in your house, and you paid for someone to clean your house, and they've not cleaned the way you wanted them to clean. When you question, that's activism, you know. So activism is not bad, but because states don't want people to question, and especially African states or undemocratic states, they label activists as wale watu ambao hapendi maendeleo, hapendi amani, they are disrespectful to government. So questioning government is not wrong. That is what being an active citizen is, you know. And questioning, you know, there are people who take guns and go to the bush instead of questioning. So would you rather we question openly, or would you rather all these young people who are looking for opportunities and can't find them pick up guns? And actually they are being killed. Remember the Kenjokoma brothers who were killed the other day?
indeed,
Those
yes.
kids that just started a business to employ themselves. They had solved the opportunity issue for themselves. On the first day, their first take, the police wanted to steal their first take. So they beat them, they threw them off a moving vehicle, and those boys died. You know, and that became big because it was in Embu. Otherwise, that is happening in Roma, in Mathare, in Kibra every day. Young people are being shot, they're being killed, you know, because they're looking for opportunities and they're not conforming. So these things are there. If you go to Twitter, you find Kenya Tuitakayo, you'll find Kenya Tuitakayo has a Twitter handle, but look for the website, you'll see what it does. If you look for social justice movement, if you look at what Katiba Institute is doing, public interest litigation, look at what Kina Omtata are doing, and very many other people who are doing. All these things are being done from a space where people are speaking and agreeing that this is the course of action that we should take. And we are not, in fact, government should be very worried if we don't question it, because it should wonder what are people doing if they're not questioning, because then it becomes irrelevant. And then that means people have found ways to move on without government. And that is very dangerous.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. And it's very important, as you say, that, you know, speak up, you know, don't just be quiet. And the last segment of this, and I was saying I don't want to keep you here for long. The current Kenya government, or the current Kenya parliament, you know, has got more youthful faces that we've ever seen, isn't it? You know, I'm talking about, Mutekilozo Jr., I'm talking about Sakaja. You know, I can name them. You know, we've got, you know, Jaguar. We've got people that we can identify with. So it's not just about age issue, Kiama. There's more than that.
And you go back to the issue of conformity. If you have a system that produces people to conform, it goes all the way to parliament. Let me give you an example. And we had this conversation with our mutual friend, Boniface, before he ran for office in the last election. And the debate was, is it possible to go to parliament and change things? So let me give you a scenario. So let's say you want your Jaguar or your Boniface representing Starehe, and you want to ask a question about Starehe, why there is no water in some ward in Starehe. So you put that paper on, you write a paper, that question on paper. Then you take it to the clerk of National Assembly for it to be put in the order paper, okay? Then it has to be approved by a certain committee, and then it's taken to the speaker. And then once the speaker is given the order paper, the speaker has the discretion to decide whether that question becomes asked. But the thing is, once the question is on the order paper, you cannot speak about it outside parliament. That's what parliamentary rules say. So you have a water problem in Starehe, you're Boniface Mwangi. You've gone through the entire procedure. When the speaker decides, we're not going to ask this question, but they're not going to tell you. It just sits there on the order paper, and you keep pressing the buzzer so that you can ask your question, and the speaker does not acknowledge you, and does that for months. But you cannot speak about it outside parliament. So people say, "Oh, jamaa alienda parliament na ongei." Lakini system ndio inakufix.
That's
You
interesting.
when you Boniface Mwangi, una kelele mingi, so you're going to be fixed by the rules of the house.
I will make these rules, Kiama. The parliamentarians themselves. It's a joke, man.
Exactly. And a lot of these rules come from a time when the British were here. In fact, the parliamentary, actually, it's the British system.
Well, Kiama, is this real? I'm on propaganda too.
The House of
Kiama, what you're telling me, is that real? I'm on propaganda too.
Think about it. Can you ask a question in parliament without the speaker approving it?
No, there's standing orders, isn't it?
Yeah, there's standing orders. Where do those standing orders come from?
Wow. So why don't these people change that? Oh, this is madness. So why don't they change that then, Kiama?
Because they have to conform. So what happens if you hear people receiving 10,000 shillings in the toilets? Because these guys are hungry. Because Kevin, you and I are asking them to come for our funerals and our weddings and our what and give us money, and they are broke and they are relying on their salaries. And so they are easily bought. And again, it's the same system that also designs a police service or force, whereby the police live in shacks in very subhuman conditions. And then they are released to the population. They are paid very little money. So what do? It's actually the psychology of it is that their system actually bleeds the corruption, the bribery thing of the police. Because if you give somebody a gun and you pay him 4,000 shillings a month, what do you expect they will do with that gun?
Wow. Wow. Well, again, for those that have just joined us, this is Mtandao Varsity School of Soft Skills. I'm talking to Mutemi Wa Kiama, human rights defender based in Nairobi, Kenya. Now, just as we finish, Kiama, and I think it's one thing you and I agree here is. Kiama, if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Right. I'm saying that one something that we and I were agreeing here is young people need to speak out about this injustice that they face, whether they've got opportunities or not. That's what you are saying here, right?
Could you repeat the question? Yes?
So, no, it's not a question, really, just a statement. One thing that you and I, we kind of agree, is that young people should not be quiet when they face these injustices, whether they're looking for employment or not.
There's a statement that is attributed to Dedan Kimathi, and it says, if you'd rather die, let me ask a question. Would you rather die on your knees begging, or would you rather die fighting for what you want, So let's say this, you can conform and stay in your mother's house and wait for opportunities. Hopefully they will come, which is what a lot of us did in the 90s, in the 80s and the 90s, playing good people, good boy, good girl. Or you can look for opportunities because the opportunities are out there in the world. So ask questions. Don't keep quiet. Keeping quiet will not help in any way. Even if you're Christian, Jesus challenged status quo when he was operating 2,000 years ago in Galilee or in Israel then. Muhammad, if you're Muslim, Nabi Muhammad came and disrupted a society then. And that's why up to date, these guys, we read about them. And we follow some of their religions, their teachings to date. Why? Because they challenge the status quo. So you can conform and die and live to be 100 years of having done nothing, or you can question and see where that leads.
There, there are lots of good examples where people come together, especially on Twitter, online, Instagram, Twitter. Where, for example, the day there were two boys, two brothers. If it wasn't the pressure from the internet, I don't think this issue would have sufficed to the public. So last thing from me, Kiama. So, what is the way forward? So whether we're looking for opportunity or not, we've got to speak out as young people, and young people is relative in terms of definition. But what's the way forward? What is the practical way forward for us or for young people to get opportunities?
Kevin, organize. Organizing means once you know what you're good at, bring together some friends, some people, your peers, sit down and discuss. What someone else is good at, what you're good at, what skills you have, what training have you gone through. And then what happens is that you bring together 5, 7, 10 people. You start getting different perspectives from the ones that you have. You start hearing of opportunities that you never thought are available. But unfortunately, a lot of young people just suffer alone or seek advice from elders who are conformists. So I'll keep using that one because that's what you're talking about here, questioning.
Yes.
And you realize that humanity has a habit of beating each other down or trying to make sure that you don't go out of the convention. So we put boundaries and we say you have to operate within these boundaries. And when you go out, sometimes you can even beat you up, especially family or friends. Like, why are you doing that? No, you don't do that. Do what you want to do. Do what you want to do, because ultimately it is you who will look back years later and say, I wish I'd done this. So the worst thing, I remember my granddad, when I was in my 20s, telling me that he had only one regret. There are things he wanted to do when he was a young man, and he didn't do them because he was worried about what society would say. And he wished he had done them because ultimately, nothing matters. It's only what you've done. That's the only thing that matters. All these are things of what will my mother say, what will my friends say, what will my teacher say, what will my pastor say, what will whoever say. They are all nothing. Ultimately, it is you and what decisions that you make. So come together with the other young people, thrash out ideas, even the silliest ideas. If you read about some of the people who have been successful in coming up with new businesses or getting new products, they never thought they would amount to much, but what they did was they were persistent in whatever they were doing.
Yes, I actually agree, and I can identify with that. It's quite interesting, Kiama. So these WhatsApp groups that people we can actually use those as a basis of, and I know people are doing that. I know, like I belong to various WhatsApp groups where people talk about ideas and stuff like that. But I suppose what I'm hearing from you is we take advantage of those kind of groups where we can actually make things happen for us.
Yeah, let's not just share memes of naked women or naked men,
Yes.
or whatever it is that we share. We can share those. There's nothing wrong with sharing those, but let's share also ideas. Let's ask questions. Let's try and have debates. You can even say once every week, someone is going to come up with a topic that we can all discuss, and then take it beyond the groups. So you can start the conversation in the group and then say, let's meet for coffee or tea in a Kibandaski mahali somewhere. and explore. So to socialize outside the internet. But you also get to meet other people. Even when you're socializing, you get to meet other people and see opportunities. Because opportunities can be, you could just be walking like this and you see an idea hits you. You know, I think I've had many ideas come to me when I just see something and I ask myself, why isn't somebody doing anything about this? And I was like, and that could be a business idea,
Wow, Kiama, so I know I've got lots of questions which I'm not going to go to. I think time is over, but someone's just told me here that you are behind. So this is just on Facebook. So you are behind Boniface Mwangi's fund campaign, like where people are being give him 10 shillings, 5 shillings. That was your brain. You are the brainchild behind that. Is that correct?
Yes, I started with the Mother Karua, Simama na Mama na Mia, where we fundraised. I was in Mother Karua's 2013 campaign, and so we started that idea of people contributing to a candidate so they can own the candidate. And so when Boniface decided to run in 2017, I told him, why don't you do this? And initially he resisted, he said he doesn't think Kenyans would give him money. But I told him it's not about even raising money. It's about people owning you as a candidate. And you see how successful it was. Once he took it on, it was very successful. Because
oh yes.
I mean, I think he raised more money than he even needed for his campaign at that time.
Right. So people want change, Kiama, isn't it? I mean, from that example, Boniface Mwangi, where people supported him, I mean, it didn't make it, but you can see the army behind him. It's like ordinary people.
Kevin, every election, Kenyans change about 70% of the MPs. In the last election, we changed 80% MPs and NCAs in 2017. So Kenyans go to vote and they change. Unfortunately, the 20% or 30% that remains in parliament, those are the ones you're calling the system. Those are the ones who say ODM ni yangu. So if you don't conform with my ODM, I'll kick you out. Jubilee ni yangu. If you don't conform with my Jubilee, ama wale wanaform UDA, ama ni Wiper, ama ni union. Those ones are the ones we need to change. Because we keep them in power. So you have this guy who has been in KANU since 1960, and you expect him to change. Apart na chama ni yake, ama ni ya baba yake, kama Gideon Moi. So we keep blaming them. You ask about the Kasakajas and the who. They go and find easy vyama vina wenyewe. So what we also need to do is form our own parties as Kenyans who are not part of those families. And use these parties to get into MCA's positions, into MP positions, and go and take over those parties. It's easier said than done, I know, but
wow, I know. And just a last comment from me, as you say, easier said than done. But are you accessible, Kia? I mean, what you're saying here, it's very important. And I know where I went to school, we used to have people come talk to us about this kind of stuff, even to grad school level, Kiama. In a certain class, we will get people from all over the world come to speak to young people and kind of provoke thoughts, So are you available? Where can people find you? And I'm talking about, it's not just about being partisan here. I'm talking about things that actually affect communities. It has to start from the grassroots, as you said. So where do people find you?
Have you seen how much I've tried to avoid attacking government or doing anything that isn't? I'm actually talking about people organizing themselves. So, I mean, organizing spaces, I mean, the grassroots spaces, in those places I'm talking about, in Mathare, in Korogosho, in Dandora, in Kisumu. I just spent a week and a half in Kisumu.
I know, you told me that.
You were trying to get me and you couldn't get me.
Yes,
indeed, yes. And we were there with young people organizing. And people we are coming, we are looking for solutions. So if the opportunities won't be created by the government and the people we elect, we are going to create them ourselves. So I'm available.
Who's funding you, Kiama, then?
If you inbox me on Facebook as Mwalimu Mutemi Wa Kiama, or you DM me on Twitter or even on Instagram, I'm responsive. Mimi si mtu wa maringo, and I'll come to you wherever you are. You have we want us to have a conversation.
I know, and one thing I can actually vouch for is, even before I met you, I know we've met in Nairobi, but before that, I remember I wrote you Facebook message. That's how we met, and you responded. So for those that are very interested to know more about what you do, definitely, and they can find you there. Someone is asking, who funds you?
And that's a very good question, by the way. Now, I am a designer, trained, worked in a media company, and then started my own media company, a communications company. So what I do is, I used to be Christian, but I'm no longer religious now. I'm spiritual. So I don't tithe. So my activism is my 10%. So my 10% in my, after I paid my bills, I put into my work.
So you
now,
pay for your own staff?
I pay for my stuff because a lot of people ask that question because they expect I have some donors somewhere who are giving me money. Nimekuwa nikiwatafuta. I've written many proposals, but I've never been funded. If someone knows a donor somewhere who can fund the work that I do, I'm also, but I'd prefer if, let's say, I have a project. Let's say we are training young people on how to create opportunities for themselves. And these young people are willing to give 100 bob, or some other Kenyan who's able is willing to give 1,000 bob, and I get 1,000 Kenyans giving 1,000 bob. That's like 1,000,000 shillings. That money I'd rather that kind of money than some Mzungu gives me money and tells me what to do with that money. I actually have avoided that kind of money. I don't want to be given some 1,000,000 shillings by a Mzungu and told to go and supply sanitary pads somewhere. I'm not saying sanitary pads are not important, but someone else is doing that. I don't want to do that. I want to train young people to find opportunities. So what I'm trying to do, like the question you asked about Boniface Mwangi and his campaign and Mother Karua, is get us to a point where we actually appreciate the people who work for us, whether they are MPs, and we fund them. In fact, the money to start financing our MPs and MCAs and owning them, because now if I find your campaign, even if I give you 10 shillings or 20 shillings, I own you, and then I can hold you to account. Where's the end of parliament kufanya mambo ambayo siya? So if guys are willing, I've never really fundraised, apart from when my mom passed on, and Kenyans really contributed and actually paid for, we had a crazy hospital bill in Kenyatta, I think 1.6. Kenyans paid for them, 10 shillings, 20 shillings, 50 shillings, 100 shillings, 2,000 shillings, like that. But I think I want to experiment one day and start asking for a few. If I can get 100 guys, 100 Kenyans who can give me 1,000 shillings every month, I'll be a very happy man. And then we see, and they hold me to account. What are we doing with this money?
Well, why don't you try now, Kiama, then? Why don't you try that now? Why don't you start now? So look at 100 people that can give you 1,000 shillings, he said?
Yeah, one of the challenges, Kevin, is accountability. I don't want to be accountable. And if you don't have an organization registered, you can't get a payday.
Right.
So I don't have, you can't get so I'd want it to be system. Actually, I've been thinking about it, but I've refused to take money from people directly because I don't want to be accountable to those people. So I'm actually in the process of registering an organization that can then hopefully have the systems in place to receive that money and account to the people who are donating that money.
Kiama, I'm game. Listen, if you have that structure, I will join that. And
even you've offered me money, isn't it, Kevin? Have I ever taken? How many times have you offered money and I've refused to take? Kenyans don't believe that someone can be doing what we do without being paid by anybody. So you're a testament. I mean, I've known you for what, 4 years now?
Yes, something like that.
How many times have you offered me money? How many times have you offered me money?
Unachoma Kiama sasa. But it's true. Do you know what? It's very, very difficult actually to find someone as clean as you are, and with what you involve in. And we've discussed lots of things with you, Kiama, and one thing that I can say is, man, you're an incredible person, and I'm really honored for you to be in this platform, Kiama. Listen, last thing, I usually ask guests this part of the show, and you can say no if you can't. Can you bring for me Martha Karua here?
I can connect you to her.
Right,
and she'll make that decision.
Yeah, she doesn't have to come. She doesn't have to come. It's just introduction. If it happens, fine. If it doesn't,
I can
that's okay.
introduce you to her. Martha is very independent minded, so she will decide whether she likes it.
Right.
But I can connect you with her, and I can pitch for you.
Please, it's not political show. It's about young people really. It's soft skills and stuff that we're learning here. And it's good to share experiences.
And she's one of the leaders who actually cares about the young people. So I do that gladly.
Oh, marvelous. Well, listen, I cannot thank you enough for your time, Kiama. I know you're a very busy man. I'm extremely honored to have you here. For those that have been listening to us, this is Mtandao University School of Soft Skills. And today I was talking to Mutemi Wa Kiama, who is a human rights defender based in Nairobi, Kenya. Well, Mutemi, manze tokula samaki tena. Safi.
Asante sana. Take care, man. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
No, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Kiama. Do have a nice evening.
Cheers, man.
Mother, cheers. Thank you.